Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome news anchor, BBC World, Adnan Nawaz.
Hello again, everyone. So now it's a debate about sport and health and whether, well, how much, I suppose, is too much. We'll look at the benefits of sport to amateurs and also look at the dangers of being a professional sports person. And of course, the difference between being a professional and an amateur is absolutely huge, not only in the performance, but also in the backup, in all the healthcare and also the training. The healthy lifestyle and the continuous training patterns of professionals give them the advantage of, it's going to be proven, I'm pretty sure, of a longer life. And it's not just that. If you're a winner and you get rewarded with gold medals, you get lots of praise as well. There was an interesting study done in the United States that doesn't actually pertain particularly to sport, but it could do. And that found that Oscar winners and presidents of the United States had a longer lifespan than a normal citizen. And they concluded it was because of the feel-good factor that comes with that sort of praise. Let's bring up our panel. They are all doctors, so if you have any issues, then you know where to go, okay? I mean, some of them have also been professional athletes in the past. Ladies and gents, you'll find your names here, so if you just take your seat. And as they sit down, let me just introduce them. Mohamed Ghaith Al-KUWARI is Director, Healthy Lifestyle Program at the Aspetar Qatar Orthopedic and Sports Medicine Hospital. He's working and promoting physical activity at a community level, also previously working in primary care level in child health, amongst other areas. Rania ELWANI, former Olympic swimmer, and you're the first Arab woman ever to reach an Olympic final, so congratulations for that. You also represented the IOC athletes in the organization's medical commission. You also work with WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency. We'll talk about there is obviously, some sort of physical benefit that the dopers get, but how about the damage as well? Dr. Stéphane BERMON, you're based in Monaco. You're a former professional snowboarder, which I thought was very interesting. And you're now a sports physician, exercise physiologist at the Monaco Institute of Sports Medicine, member of the IAAF's Medical and Anti-Doping Commission. And then we have Jean-Francois, TOUSSAINT, cardiologist. And, well, you've written this report for the French government, Jean-Francois, which we will talk about as well, which talks about the health benefits and the avoidance of injury from participating in a healthy lifestyle and also playing sport. And then we also have Cees VERVOORN, and you have something in common with Rania, Cees, because you were also a former Olympic swimmer, former vice director of elite sport at the Dutch Olympic Committee. You also work with anti-doping in the Netherlands, formally, and you participate in the Olympic Games as an athlete and also as a coach. So the experience amongst you is absolutely immense. Jean-Francois, let's start with three names, okay? I was reporting on all three of these when they died. Miklos Feher, 24 years old, Marc-Vivien Foé, probably the most famous of them. So you'll know where I'm going. He was 28 years old, the Cameroon international. And Antonio Puerta, the Sevilla player, was 22 years old. They all died of heart attacks or heart-related injuries that they sustained on the pitch. They didn't all die on the pitch. Antonio Puerta died 3 days later in hospital after suffering a series of cardiac arrests in a Primera Liga game. Can those kind of sudden deaths be prevented?
Well, this is a very tough subject. Obviously, we speak of life and death here, and entering that debate is always a way to understand how prevention will reduce the risk, not annihilating it. We cannot stop the full, because 1/3 of these sudden deaths, the first symptom will be the last one, meaning that you enter into the disease by stopping your life. So this only way to do that prevention was seen in the basketball, because they had also suffered in the USA professional basketball in the 90s such a series of sudden deaths, and they showed how to make that programs by looking at the detection, getting stress test, getting echocardiography for professional athletes, getting MRIs with magnetic resonance, and having progressively entered that, you reduce a little bit because you enter to these cardiomyopathy that will have those sudden deaths. But some of them will still remain undetectable at all.
I don't know who wants to answer this question, because I don't believe any of us are necessarily experts in American football or indeed the brain functions. But in American football, I believe it's almost been clinically proven that the big hits in that sport do lead to brain damage. Stéphane, do you want to take this?
Yeah, there have been some studies. Well, the jury is still out because we still miss some scientific data, but we strongly suspect that if you experience brain concussion or regular brain trauma, it can have some, of course, immediate effect like a knockout, but also some medium and long-term effects. And this has to be taken into consideration. So the point is, it's a bit the same like for the sudden cardiac death. It's not so easy to prove. And also there is another issue. It's sometimes in professional athletes, they don't want to say it because some new federation, they implemented rules. If you had such kind of brain concussion, you're out of the pitch for a couple of weeks. And of course, for a pro athlete, being out of the pitch means a lot of loss of money. So we have to be very cautious about that. And also for the long-term effect, the only data we have are coming from necropsy or autopsy. And of course, it's difficult to prove, but we have some strong suspicion. We should be cautious. And also, we have some genetic marker showing that ApoE, for instance, is a genetic marker showing that if you go for brain concussion, according to the genotype you have, you will fastly or slowly recover on long term from this. So this is also an ethical issue. If you have your kids that would like to enter this kind of contact sport like rugby or American football, and what about if I do the genetic test for this guy and if it's positive? Should I let him go or not?
Rania, what would you say about the ethics of a sporting governing body that allows its competitors to take part in a professional event that knows it's going to cause damage to its athletes?
From a WADA or from a World Anti-Doping Agency perspective, this would be a problem because part of putting things on the list of the anti-doping is that it's something against the spirit of sport or non-ethical. So it is, if it's harmful for the body, I think our recommendation is always that you try to keep away the athletes as much as you can when they're young, educate them, and then the choice is definitely theirs at the end. But competitions and a lot of rules in competitions do change because of the medical facts that arise and the medical facts that are studied more carefully now with athletes. With the athlete's passport, with now that the blood tests and the genetic tests as we see, it is a way not to control the athletes but to protect their health to the maximum that we can possible.
Mohamed, you work with Cees, you want to say
still,
something?
I think it's unethical to have athletes enter into sports
Of course, yes.
where there's a danger, a known danger for their health, on behalf of earning more money as
Of course,
as an
true.
organization or whatever. And I think, in ethically speaking, that the discussion between lives and money should be in favor of lives.
Of course, yes,
I mean,
definitely.
as I recall, they changed the rules pretty quick after it was proven that the concussions seriously harmed in the long term the health of the football players. Is that right, or didn't they change it?
You're correct, and I also have it in my notes. One question to you guys was going to be, is the dollar the bottom line? I believe they did change the rules in terms of how players can hit each other with their helmets.
Exactly.
I think that's one of the rules that they changed in the
And also
NFL.
sometimes the gear that the athletes get to wear, like in boxing, now they're debating
Exactly.
whether we should take it off, put it on. Is it more exciting for the viewers? Well, I don't care about the viewers as much as the
Exactly.
athlete's health at some points.
Okay, well, actually, let's pick up on that point, because Mohamed, you involved more with the younger athletes. In the Commonwealth Games, I was watching men's boxing, and they weren't wearing any headgear. Would you send a young person into a boxing ring without headgear?
Yeah, actually, we are talking about two aspects. First, we are talking about the implementation of the policy for injury prevention, which is very important, and this should be raised in every sport event, and it should be really something that we have to oblige the organization to do it. And the other thing is about the education for the coaches as well as the players. And this will should start from the young age to give them some preventive measures. And actually this area about the injury for sport-related injuries is still under research, and we are focusing more on gathering a lot of knowledge because of the variety of the sport and the variety of even the injuries according to the sport. So epidemiologically they should understand it more. They have to take more action in awareness and policy as well. So for young athletes, I think they are at risk from injury because you have to focus more on their type of training, even not only the load, even to take the measurements that protect them from the injuries.
Okay, Stéphane and Jean-Francois, possibly, because you come from a country that loves its rugby. We've talked about American football, and it's worth noting also that sadly 3 American football players in college football in the United States have died very recently. And that's something we've already talked about in American football. And Rania mentioning all the padding and the helmets that they wear. In rugby, they don't wear that. Lawrence Delalio, the former England rugby union captain, told me once, he said, for the duration of an 80-minute rugby international, it's like being the equivalent of being in 2 or 3 car accidents. This is a very violent sport. What about the injuries that come from that, the evidence that has emerged of what might happen to a professional rugby player later in life? Do we know anything about that, Stéphane?
Well, we have very few studies. There are some studies that were conducted during a rugby tournament in high-level rugby players showing that it generates a huge amount of cost. Because if you look at, they were not professional, but they were high-level rugby players. And if you look at the medical-related costs within the week or 2 weeks after the competition, you have to spend a lot of money for this. So this is one point. There are some studies, but you know, as always, if you want to change the rule, you have to do it on fact. And to get the fact, you need to do epidemiological studies, and it takes a lot of time. First, the athletes should play the game. I mean, they should accept this kind of studies, especially if you want to work on elite athletes. It's not that easy. And then once you get the result, then you can have the real fact and change the rule and bring more protection or take adapted measures. That's not that easy. But still, people are looking for that, yes.
Case.
Yes. There was a study a couple of years ago on the Olympic population, every athlete they could trace back, and the average population. And it turned out that despite all the injuries, all the doping, and all the things they were using, or not, the Olympic athletes had a longer lifespan, and my next door neighbor said it was 6 years, than the average person. So being active in general is good for your life expectancy. And I remember that, well, in the book there's this question about would a sedentary life cost less than the injuries in a sporting life? And we know that it costs much more sedentary life than a sporting life because they not only live longer, but they live longer healthier. So the last 20 years of their life doesn't cost as much for an athlete as for a sedentary person. Chronic diseases, obesity, you name it. So at the end, if we have to choose, I would still advise everyone to go do sports.
Okay, Case, you've moved the discussion on very well. I was just about to do that. Jean-Francois and Mohamed, you both want to say something about what Case is talking about. Mohamed, go ahead.
Yes, actually for recreation sport and professional sport, we have to have some responsibility to recreational sports. Because if we are agreeing on that sport could be a preventive factor for many diseases, and this is proven, we have to address the aspect of the side effect of this sport. It's like a medication. You have to monitor this medication very well, and you have to design it or making the dose of this medication according to the need of the population. Because when you move in your life, you move from one stage to another. And even if you are a professional players, you will suffer from some consequences. So this needs a lot of changes in our language to the public when we are speaking about recreation sport, to be active and to be healthy.
Okay, we're talking about the advantages now of a healthy lifestyle, a physical lifestyle, Jean-Francois.
And in fact, this is really the good balance for the policy on that. And national and international policies should take all the results of these epidemiological studies, because then what you see is when you take a non-moving population onto a moving population, so they start sport, they start physical activity, then you earn 3 years at the end of the follow-up, a very long follow-up and very large numbers that are proving that. But if you are a high-level athlete, then it's 6 years, as mentioned, Kees. So the 6 years is coming from the predisposition, is coming from genetics, from many things, but still, even if you are a cyclist in the Tour de France, exposed to high-level and high moments of doping, or to high concussion rate into the American football, still you have those 5 years, 6 years sometimes, that show that you are in this healthy worker effect, that is selecting, and this is a process of sport, selecting the guy that will, under the load, that will still remain able to improve and to progress.
Okay, Cees, say something, and then I want to just ask Rania about being a professional.
Because we have a huge problem. My colleague yesterday pointed that out also. The high-quality elite sport is not pulling the sedentary people into activity, because they think, well, they are so good, I'm not, I stay sedentary because that fits me more. So we have to find a way to get all those people active, at least active, walk the dog 3 times a week or whatever. But if you do that with role models like the Tour de France winners or the fabulous athletes we have here, it sometimes scares them away from being active because it's so far out of their reach, they are actually scared of it.
In fact, the fact and the load that we are giving on the shoulders, it's right there. We have been sitting for 2 days now, and this is a huge sedentary load that we impose to our audience. So we should end up that session standing up.
It's very good, because apparently standing up is so much more healthy for you than sitting down. Okay, so the benefits are obvious, both to professional athletes and also to amateurs. And in terms of national budgets, in developed countries, it's shown that developed countries spend 10% of their national budget on healthcare. So presumably, if they invest a bit more in sport, they will be able to reduce that amount that they're spending. Rania, as an Olympic swimmer, Cees, you were also one. When you were at the height of your powers and all the training you were doing, did you have to sacrifice something socially in terms of your lifestyle? Because can a professional athlete go to a nightclub, have a cigarette, have a drink? Did you sacrifice?
I didn't have cigarettes, but
Sure.
yes, of course, there's a we do sacrifice and give up a few things that we like to do, but part of it is because you had a goal and you have a certain schedule that you have to follow. But of course, we had our times off and we had our vacations. But I want to go back to the point you were discussing about how much sport we need in our life. As professional athletes, you have a goal, and you try to be healthy with your nutritionist, with your coach, with your psychologist, with everyone, to try to make you healthy enough so that you can compete at your highest potential. Unfortunately, after we're done, we lose that motivation. After we retire, for a while, you lose that motivation because you think you're always taking care of your body for a certain purpose. You don't think that you're doing it to be a healthy individual and to live a good life. So actually, personally, I had this problem because I went into the medical field, I got carried away with kids and practices and other things in life, and then you realize that you're not as healthy as you used to be, even though as an athlete it was too much dedication to that physical training that we used to do. So recently, even I was not feeling well, and my doctor said, well, you just need to go work out. I'm like, okay, 17 years was not enough. We have to do a little bit all our life, and just to be healthy. Psychologically as well, the athletes are used to a lot of attention, a lot of competition, a lot of winnings, even losses. These are a lot of psychological events that you handle and you go through. When you go to a sedentary life after that, or you go to work, the stress of work, we're not handling as much as we used to before. So sometimes not being exposed to that much stress makes you handle the little stress not in the correct way. So it does affect you better. Some athletes, they go into depressions after staying away from sport for a long time. We have natural medicines, natural things that, I don't want to go too much medical, but our bodies are used to this. So we're addicted to having a certain level of activity in our life.
Absolutely. Stéphane and then Mohamed.
Yeah, I think it's very important to point out that we should put more effort in accompanying former elite athletes when they retired, because as Rania said, they could experience depression, and also, you know, when you are restricted for years, because high-level training is a restriction. You cannot smoke, you cannot eat, you have to sleep at least 10 hours per night and so on. So then they have the trend to release, and there have been, for instance, some studies conducted in former Brazilian soccer players showing that after the end of the career, a lot of them are overweight, for instance, and a lot of them also experience arthritis of the knee, and they deserve regular injection of anti-inflammatory in the joint and so on. So we should put some more effort, and I think IOC is working on that with the World Olympian Association on accompanying for the next 5 or 10 years after the retirement these athletes, because they could be really in trouble for sometimes, yes.
Mohamed?
I do agree completely that we have to address the issue of post-retirement care and the continuity of the care of the athletes, because the consequences and the change in the lifestyle, it should be managed during this period. But I will bring another point, which is in the start, because if you address the physical activity for the whole community from the early childhood, you will get the elite athletes. But if you concentrate on talent identification from the start, you will pull out some of a large portion of the community, because they don't have the skills, so they don't have the culture of being active along their life. Yeah.
Okay, guys, we're going to move on to amateurs in a moment. Just quickly, make your points. Cees?
I do worry, though, all those, here we're in a room with believers, but there are many non-believers out there, and most of those non-believers are the ones who decide whether we help people being active for the rest of their lives or not. We in the Netherlands have a problem with physical education 3 hours a week at the youngest level of the primary schools. This discussion should not take place, because it makes them healthy for a long time, and it even helps them cognitively to be a smarter kid if you do it right. And it's an absurd discussion, but it happens. And we should spread the word also outside the Spire Dome.
Sure.
It's exactly what I wanted to say also, is that we always, as athletes, we always advocate playing sports at a high level. My kids, they play sports, and everyone expects me to make them, what champions are going to be in, what kind of champions are going to develop, which sport are they going to play, are they going to be world champions? The pressure you put on kids that they have to play sport just to be champions is not the right image. We have to fine, exactly. Playing sport should be a part of a lifestyle that we teach them at school. That's why we always advocate going back to competitions between schools and having sport as a real part of school life.
Sure. Okay, about 6 minutes to go. So let's talk about the amateurs and the benefits that they get from physical activity. Jean-Francois, tell us about this report that you put together, commissioned by the Health Ministry in the Élysée Palace, the Presidential Palace in France. Is that correct? And it's a national program.
Yeah, this was a national program getting from the point of the higher sedentarity rate, as we mentioned. The first serial killer here is your chair, again. How we get out all the French population from their chair, from their bed, from their screens, and how we have all the opportunities in the daily life to have them walking, cycling, making sports, practicing, and all these were related to what we could find at school, in the universities, under the societies, the enterprise, and how we could get into the professional level. All that went up to 230 recommendations, environmental, urban, rural, and so on. And this was getting up to the political field, up to the national plan in 1912. And then it was also taken by the European Commission in the early 2000s, and went up to the first recommendation that the European ministries of sport have been taken in sport. It was not on doping, it was not on good governance, it was on HEPA, meaning health enhancing physical activity and sport. And this was what the ministries of the 28 member states in Europe signed on November of last year. So it's really something which is moving in the political field. They are taken all the recommendation, all the scientific law that we have now. But the question is, does this really happen daily? And this is really the question for the next years.
Exactly.
And big business, of course, understands this and is trying to make money out of helping governments push people into an active lifestyle. Google, Apple, Facebook, they're all releasing devices or some kind of apps that can help everyday people then monitor their health while they undertake physical activity.
But also for these apps, the non-users of apps are sometimes being scared away by all the fancy stuff they can do. So you really have to think what kind of functionalities you use in the app to get the non-movers into movement, which is difficult.
And you mentioned, Cees, about the problem for an amateur to actually emulate their sporting hero. I had an example which I emailed you about a couple of weeks ago. I know an Indian boy in London. Both his parents are Indian. He's 10 years old, and Michael Phelps is his role model. So, Mohamed, he is going every morning to the swimming pool, and he is competitively swimming. Where can he eventually hope to get to? Because in my mind, I can't think of a former Indian Olympic champion. And Rania, you're a great example of breaking that kind of mold. But is it even possible to say that someone's genealogy might already prevent them from reaching the absolute ultimate level? And do you have to be a freak, maybe, to be an Indian Olympic swimming champion?
Yeah, actually, using the role model from the champions is one of the benefits of taking the sport players as a role model, especially during the adolescent age. So this should be controlled from the early age by giving them the awareness about being active, and you should be educated about your skills and how you are going to be gradually increase in your skills. And if you have different skills for different sport, they should be even redirected. And here we are encouraging for the organized structured sport since early childhood. So you can prevent even the side effect of taking the wrong role model, or even increasing your load in a non-professional way.
Rania, if this boy were as determined as he is now for the next 10 years, I could see him in an Olympic Games. What would you say to him? His mum wanted to watch us. He said,
okay.
oh, definitely talk about my son, because you're completely right about him trying to be Michael Phelps.
I think part of having a role model is helping you reach the best potential you can be at. So having a role model does not mean I have to be exactly like him, but I train like him, and I think like him, and I go to school, and I try to be do everything that would get me to reach my highest potential. And that's what I do with my kids. You don't have to be the world champion, but if you reach everything your body and your surrounding helped you to reach, this is what then you have succeeded. That's in my opinion, of course.
Okay, 30 seconds each, okay? Stéphane, Jean-Francois, and Cees, because we're going to go over, but 30 seconds each. Stéphane.
Well, okay, a point we have not discussed yet, but if you want to promote physical activity, you should know that in worldwide, most of the people, more and more people every day move from campaign to cities, and sometimes big cities. So one day we should have a discussion with architects and people designing cities to make cities more friendship for people who would like to spend more time in physical activity, just walking or taking stairs instead of lifts. I think that's a critical issue to be discussed soon.
Jean-Francois.
Yeah, and environment and genetics, it's really how we have to handle that. We improve our knowledge on genetics, ACTN3, HFE. A lot of genes are now known to be only associated with performance. But you can never say to some of your sons, some of your girls, well, now you are not skilled to do that. You don't have the genes, you don't have the predisposition. Yes, they have a lot. We don't understand the complexity of the interrelation. We have to work on that between all those elements that we will improve to get to the best potential they all have.
Yes, very short. I completely agree with Rania, but to the little guy, where is he? Is he sitting back home?
No, he's at
All
home,
right.
yeah.
Just make sure that every meter you swim, you have fun
Yes.
in what you do. And then you will reach your own potential, which might be Olympic champ and might be a happy person, a happy, healthy person. So have fun.
Ladies and gentlemen, the doctors. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks a lot. Okay, so we've got a 25-minute coffee break now. There's also a friendship tournament going on during that coffee break. You can do capoeira, that traditional Brazilian sporting kind of cultural dance as well. And obviously, plenty more coming up later in the day. Enjoy your coffee. Thanks a lot.